Alright, so let's do the video here on the Bob Long Insight. Now, history has shown us inside a paintball that anytime a company does a product that they've never really dove into before, okay, like Planet Eclipse, they did the poppets for years and they came out with the Geo. There are some issues with it initially, which is why we've seen quite a few releases of the Geo, and it's gotten better and better every single year. Typically, when a company goes into a completely different realm, you can expect for the first couple months, the first 100, 200, 300 guns that are released possibly are going to have problems. We've seen this with many companies, even the newer companies that are coming out, Machine Vapor, stuff like that. So, not to pick on Machine, but we've seen companies that have come out, they've released a brand new gun. They've never made that type of gun before, and there's tolerance issues and stuff like that. So, unfortunately, when the Insight came out initially, there was a tolerance issue. Now, what happened was the gun was getting some sort of airlock on the inside. It was puffing. If you guys remember, like the old shockers, you get that puff, and the gun wouldn't shoot. Even some of the first Lux owners had the same problem. After a while, O-rings would wear out, and you get that airlock on the inside where the gun wouldn't shoot. That's what was happening with the Insight. Bob Long, figured out what the problem was, and he did something that was really cool. He actually went public, made a video apologizing to his customers, letting them know what the problem was, how they could fix it. You could ship the gun to him, or he could ship you the parts kit. It was basically a tolerance issue. It was off like 4/100ths of an inch, and it was causing an issue inside of the gun. They figured out what it was. They went to a different O-ring on the inside, and now the amount of problems with the inside have gone from the problems they were having with the first shot drop off to almost nothing. So you just got to remember, you just got to have a little bit of patience when you first start. When you buy the initial release of a product from a company when they've never dove into that before. This obviously being Bob Long's first spool valve gun. He's been making amazing poppet valve guns for years, and this is his first spool valve gun. You got to have a little bit of patience that, if you're one of the first people to own it, you're basically going to be the guinea pig, and they're going to be relying on you to provide feedback as to what's going on so they can perfect the line going forward. This is the Insight. First couple months that I had it, I had issues with mine. I had the first shot drop off issues with it. When I went to World Cup, gave it to Terry Fong. Terry Fong put the updated parts in it, and it's shot phenomenal ever since. You guys have seen quite a few videos of me using this gun. I absolutely love this gun. What we'll do really quick, let's go ahead and weigh it. It's a really lightweight marker. Apologize for that. So 1 pound, 15.8 ounces, so basically just under 2 pounds. Let's see if that'll hold. So 1 pound, 15.8 ounces. So now packaging with the gun is packaging with the Bob Longs always typically tend to be very minimal. I know that they are now starting to come out with a gun case for some, but with the Insight, you're basically just getting the box. You're getting a little bit of a parts kit on the inside. You can see also that it's got the OLED board. So let's go ahead and take it out. Let's do the efficiency test on it first, and then come back. We'll take it apart, which is only going to take us like 2 minutes, and then we'll do the conclusion on the gun. Okay, guys, we're about to do the efficiency test on the Bob Long Insight. So hopefully you can see on the gauge there, we're sitting at 4,162 PSI. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and chrono the gun.
Look at the cooler. Okay. You got my phone in that? Yeah, it's in the back.
Alright, look pretty good. 294 and a 296. So we'll go ahead and start with that. Actually, you can stand down right. That's going to be right here. Okay, yep, so I'll come over here. throwing them out there. I got about 13 and a half pods. Thank you. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take this gun apart. Regulator uses the same Bob Long 360 regulator that they've been using since I think the Bob Long Infamous and Empire, the Gen 4 Intimidators from many, many years ago. Very, very simple. Unscrew this, tap it down a couple times, out comes the piston and the washers, clean it up, good to go. Do that maybe once every 10 cases. And let me show you how easy this is to take the bolt apart. I love guns like this. This is awesome. Out comes the bolt. Very, very simple. It's very similar to the, I don't want to call it an ion bolt, but it kind of uses the same design. Also as like the Proto or even the DM bolt. It's very, very similar. You got a dump chamber. As the bolt slides forward, all the air dumps out and goes out the bolt. Very, very simple, proven, easy design. If you want to completely get the bolt out of here, you put an Allen key into the back and unscrew it, and this back part will separate from the front of the bolt. Now, a couple issues that I have heard some people talk about, and I experienced it as well, is if you take the trigger out for whatever reason, let's say you take the trigger out and you notice when you go and put it back in that the gun is going into like a full auto, or it's bouncing on you like crazy. What you want to do is look into this hole right here. Okay, if you see the spring going down at an angle, that means the spring is not seated properly. The spring should go straight back. You should not be able to see the spring through this hole. What's happening is if you put it in and the spring goes down, it touches the top of the micro switch, and every time you pull the trigger, you've got not only your trigger pulling the micro switch down at the bottom of the micro switch, but you've got the spring pulling it up at the top. And with the spring vibrating, with the gun shooting, it's causing the spring to pull the trigger as well. So if you run into that issue, check this top bolt, or this top screw right here. When you take it out, if you see the spring in there, just take your Allen key, stick it in, and pop the spring back into place. If that doesn't take care of it, I do know that there was some initial boards at the beginning that were very, very sensitive on the bouncing, and so you may want to contact Bob Long and see if your particular board has a software revision or might need an upgrade to prevent that. But I did notice that mine, all of a sudden one day I got shot in the trigger frame, and I take it apart, put it back together, and things just running away on me, and I couldn't figure out what it was. Then I realized that's what it was. It was the spring on the inside. Not really that big of a deal. Something else too, a change that I particularly would like to make on these guns is that, and this goes all the way back to the G6Rs, I love the feed neck on it in that if you've seen like the die, like the DM14s and stuff like that, you know, they've got the twist lock feed neck. Okay, but the problem is that sometimes with some loaders, you might be, if you turn it one full turn out, it might be too loose, one full turn in, and you can hear the plastic on your loader cracking. You know, the one really cool thing about this feed neck is that it does have the screw on this side. I know there's a patent. I think with Dangerous Power or something like that owns the patent on that screw. So I'm not sure. You know, I'm sure they've got to pay royalties to it to have that ability to adjust it. But the cool thing, what I like to do is I make it really loose. I put my loader in, put this down, and then I snug that screw down, and then now it's set perfectly for my loader. But the change I would like to make down here is that I wish they would machine a ridge here around the. The base here, because when this screw loosens up, your feed neck can just come right off, as opposed to some of the other guns, Planet Eclipse, MacDev, stuff like that. They've got a ridge around the body of the gun and that the feed neck snaps onto, so that way when it loosens up, it'll just spin on you, as opposed to just coming off. With the Bob Long ones, there's no ridge there, and once it loosens up, the feed neck can pop off. Okay, that's about it in regards to the changes I would make on the gun. But as you can see here, I love this. It's all nice and rounded off. It's all nice and smooth here. So when you're diving, you don't have to worry about anything digging into your wrist or scratching yourself up. Up here on the front of the gun, There's nothing really poking out. So when you grab it on the front, my fingers, fit perfectly into these little wells right here. So it just really gives me a nice grip to be able to grab it. Tons of room here between your hands to be able to walk your trigger without having any sort of your palm getting into it. Like with some of these really tiny guns, when your hand grabs it, your palm can't your palm's in the way, so you end up having to grab it a little further up. You can get your thumb. Some people like to grip it like this a little bit lower. You can get your thumb in here without getting your thumb all jacked up. So the ergonomics on this gun are amazing, and the trigger on this thing is fast as hell. Bob Long, I love how he always puts the pivot point. You can see the screw that holds the trigger is behind the trigger, which is great because when you go to pull, usually your wrist is kind of pointed down from your tank. It allows you to just walk this trigger at just Mach speed. It's got an amazing trigger with, very little side-to-side play on it. Awesome bearings, great adjustability. It's just, the trigger on the inside is just phenomenal. So that's about it as we're up here up close. Let's go ahead and finish up our conclusion. Okay, so let's wrap up the Bob Long Insight. One thing I noticed, Bob Long does sell 4CI kits for these. Is it worth it? Is it not worth it? Not really. You're not, if you pay the $50 to get the eyes, whether you get the laser ones or the regular ones, honestly, you're not going to notice the difference in your gun. I personally think that, I think it's more of a vanity upgrade than anything. It's, my gun's got the, the laser eyes in it, the 4C laser eyes in it. I've got them in this one, but, I wouldn't really put the money into the laser eyes if you're if you're a paintballer that's on the budget. What I would invest in, if you have a couple dollars burning a hole in your pocket, Custom Products makes a reg extender. Okay, and what it does is it goes into here and it extends your tank back about an inch. Maybe 3/4 of an inch to an inch. The ASA on this, as you can see, is very flush with the back of the gun. So especially if you're using a tank like a Gorilla tank, something that screws in really tight, it may be uncomfortable for you to get your hand around the tank and into the trigger frame. So if you really wanted to invest in an upgrade for this gun, I would recommend getting the tank extender. Custom Products makes it. You can get it on A&S Gear. It's like $20 or $25. They've got tons of different colors for it to match your gun, or you just go with gloss black, which will match your regulator. But when I gave this gun to people with the CP Reg Extender using my Ninja Pro tank, they just loved the way it felt. It just really just lined the gun up perfectly for playing. So, especially also now that the tanks are getting shorter and shorter. Remember the old Custom Product 68 tanks, the older tanks, those tanks seem like they're really long. The Ninja came out with the new one, the new 68 tanks, and they're a little shorter. Now they got the SL tanks, which are even shorter than that. The tanks just seem to be getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and basically what it's doing is it's cramping the guns up closer and closer to your face. CP Reg Extender for $25 is an amazing upgrade for this gun. I was using mine out there the whole time. It's I'm also tall, but CP Reg Extender, that's the first thing I would get as an upgrade for the Insight. These things are retail for just over $1,000. It's got an amazing OLED board on it. Got tons of modes on there. Full auto modes, ramping modes, 3-shot burst modes, all kinds of stuff in the board. It's an awesome OLED board. Very, very simple to use. But, the barrel on it, top of the line. Also, Bob Long also makes barrel kits and barrel backs. So the stock barrel is $688. I believe he's got a $684 and then a $682 barrel back that you can purchase from them. If you get a simple gun like this one, a gloss black one, you can get ones that'll match. Once he got through the problems on it, this has been an amazing shooter. I'm kind of bummed that I had to sell it, but I had to move on to other reviews like the Geo 3.5 and stuff like that. I really, really enjoyed this gun, and it feels awesome in the hands. Everybody that shoots it loves the way it sounds, loves the way it shoots. There's no vibration or anything when you shoot. It's just puff, 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 puff. I mean, the paint just comes out. It's just unbelievably accurate. It's very easy to point, and it's very easy to clean up. There's no crazy ridges or body gaps or any of this other stuff on here. You just take your towel, wipe it down on the outside like this, and you're good to go. If you need to take out the trigger, if you get shot in the trigger, unscrew it right there. The trigger slides right out through the frame. You can Q-tip up on the inside, put it back in. Like I said, just make sure you have that spring set properly so you don't get so your gun doesn't bounce on you. Nice on-off ASA right here at the bottom. I remember when the quarter turn these ASAs first came out many years ago. They had some problems with them leaking. They don't have any problems with that anymore. These ASAs work amazing. Let's also talk about low pressure tanks. So you get low pressure or mid pressure. Preferably low pressure. Anytime you have these guns with the internal Air plumbing, you got to remember that it's unregulated going through the gun and into the regulator. So preferably you'd want to use low pressure. But if your screws are snug, you can get away with mid-pressure. The efficiency test we were using a mid-pressure, the gun didn't explode or anything like that. Just remember, sometimes when you're using higher than probably 400, 500 PSI, you might be stressing out those internal O-rings that go through the gun for the internal piping to get the unregulated air to the regulator. But you don't necessarily, if the one thing you're waiting, or the one thing that's holding you up, is that you've got a mid-pressure tank and you don't want to buy a Bob Long Insight because you don't want to spend the money to get the low pressure tank. You don't have to actually buy the whole tank. You can just buy the regulator, okay? So, let's say you've got an Empire tank, ship it into Ninja, have them break the reg loose, and then just send you back a low pressure regulator that you could just screw on and just use just for this gun. So you don't really have to buy a brand new $200 tank. You just have to buy like a $40 regulator. So you contact Ninja Paintball, they'll break your reg loose and put the and ship it back to you with the reg on 2 regs, your stock reg and the SLP reg, if you really are worried about the having the low pressure regulator on here. But I think you'll find that the mid pressure will work just fine. I wouldn't put high pressure into any gun other than a Tippmann, but if you have a mid pressure tank, it's not going to be the end of the world. So that's about it. Bob Long Insight, I really like these guns. It's one of my favorite spool valve guns that are on the market, especially for the price. A couple $100 less, $400 less than the Vanquish, $400 less than the new 3.5. It's for what it is. It's an amazing gun, and it's an amazing deal for what they're charging. Several $100s less than most of the other popular spool valve guns on the market, and it shoots just as good as all of them. Thanks for tuning in.